Are you prepared for this?
Yes. Very.
Good. Glad you're prepared for this. All of 20 seconds. Hi, I'm here with my good friend, Jim Hladyshewsky, who I've worked with now for 20 years?
20 years almost.
20 years almost. 20 years. And we're today at the IBM Poughkeepsie Executive Briefing Center. Jim thought we were sitting down in front of a couple of vending machines, and I said, no, these are the latest editions of IBM mainframes that I thought we should sit in front of. We've spent a good portion of our working life working on these kinds of machines. I once wrote in a book that if the PC is the personal computer, then these things must be the impersonal computers, because you rarely ever see them, let alone seen inside of them.
Yeah. Very true.
I don't know that I've ever seen inside of them. So, Jim, why would I sit down and have a conversation with you? What have we worked on together?
Started at the large insurance company, going through changing a monthly general ledger financial process to a daily, which was my first introduction really to Geneva at the time.
When I was thinking about talking to Jim this morning, I said, yeah, well, that's what we'll talk about. I recorded a video a while ago called Show Me the Money. And Jim was the kind of the architect, the key star in the Show Me the Money work effort that we went through on that system. You want to tell me about your memories of what happened through that process? We kind of talked a little bit about that this morning at breakfast, about what we were trying to do. It's a legacy code system. The system was, it could have been 30 years old when we worked on it 20 years ago.
Right. That's what I think they originally had. It just kept being built up over time.
It was when I talked recently about these tabulating system principles. This system was built right after tabulating systems were demised, right? And you remember the paper they had, the architecture?
The flow chart?
The flow chart?
Yeah.
We could lay it out on the table. I think it was hand-drawn.
Yes,
right?
It was.
And it was the whole system on this large sheet of paper.
With a couple extra pieces.
Okay, so with that piece of paper, what did you have to do? What did we do on the system? Could you go interview somebody who knew anything about the system?
No.
No, there was nobody to talk to.
You have to interview many people. And
most of them were retired.
Yes.
Yes.
So the goal was to find all the inputs that came into that system. So it was much easier to find input data sets than to learn about the processes of what happened through the entire flow. And then our goal was to take those inputs and try and start to summarize the data to the GL account level.
Yep.
So we could try and bypass all of the processing that was taking place on a monthly process. Some processes no one understood. Data was sorted in different ways. As time went on, people changed the system to their needs, but what we needed were the inputs so we could get the outputs and not worry about what was truly happening, and we were able to do that with the help of the financial analysts.
So that's good. Let's run back through that in a bit more detail. The system we were dealing with, we were putting in a new financial system, right? And so we knew that other systems, which we weren't replacing, were the transaction capture systems. And those transaction capture systems would put data into files. So what we had to identify in the chart was where the line was between those systems we weren't changing and the system we were changing.
Yep.
And that was the first idea was, okay, so where do the files sit that have the transaction detail from the originating transaction systems, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then you go into the next part of the system and on all that stuff that we were replacing. I mean, we could have gone and read code, right?
Right.
And what would you have seen?
A lot of stuff we would never have understood.
Well, yeah, because why is there a bunch of stuff in that code that you don't understand? I mean, one thing that I've posited is there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on around error handling, right? And error handling, you write a lot of code around handling errors, and yet it's something that almost never gets executed. So you spend a lot of time trying to understand stuff that's at the margins of what's important.
Right.
So instead of doing that, what did we do?
So we went after the key data, and by being able to summarize to an account level, we could take the data coming through, remove all of the processing that was happening, some valid, some from, as you said, the error processing side, and come up with the account balances.
Because we kind of knew what the final output was.
Right.
So we posited, we hypothesized what the inputs were, and we knew what the output was that we had to target.
Right.
And that's what you were trying to do.
Right, so based on the different GL accounts, some of our numbers hit right away. So if it was supposed to be $1 million, we hit $1 million. Other times we hit a negative $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Well, through the finance team, we learned, well, those were balances that had to be multiplied by -1. So it flipped the sign on them. Others had special rules around them, so we just kept narrowing it down. And I think we got to 100%.
Yes.
Within about a 3-month period.
Yeah, and you started basically with one day, right? We took a sample of the input files and a sample of the output file for one day, and you hooked it up to the tool that Randall and I were just talking about, Geneva at the time, Saffir today, and Jim's training on Saffir was all of about 15 minutes. Okay, Jim, you're going to have to figure this out. I don't really have time to go through it in a lot of detail. And so he just defined the input files to Saffir, ran the process, and figured out, oh, okay, I select fields by using this screen. I pick the values that I want out of things by using this screen. And at the end of the time, he guessed at kind of looking at the output what probably were the inputs to that output and run the process one day.
Right.
And it was kind of that iterative nature. You get one day, and on the first day, I don't remember now, but I suspect that some of the columns you'd chosen from the inputs, you said, no, that's not the right column.
Right.
That doesn't give me any of the right output. But a couple of the columns were, oh yeah, I can kind of see those have the same kind of values. So I think I was right on that. That process of guessing is much more efficient than the process of going through and reading code and trying to document it, because it gives you immediate feedback on what the data is telling you. It's that show me the money. How do you get to that? After you got to the first day, you proved the first day, then what did we do after that? Do you remember?
Well, then we confirmed what we had, and then we just kept adding, so what's a week, what's a month,
What's a month?
what's a quarter, what's a year.
I do remember on the month process that you couldn't get it to match after you'd accumulated all the inputs for a month. And I remember Jim came out and said, there's another file that comes in, but it only comes in once a month. And so on the chart, I don't know if it was on the chart or it wasn't on the chart or something, there was one more file that you found. Oh, on a monthly basis, we've got to be reading this file as well.
Right.
That process is a process of data discovery, and it uses the principles that I've just been talking about in the most recent videos of the tabulating systems, how the tabulating systems work, guessing at what the data is going to tell you from those tabulating systems rather than trying to do a long detailed analysis, because the processes are fairly simple, and it's almost easier to do that. It is easier to do that. I think it's much easier to do that than it is to go after this problem in any other way.
Oh, definitely, because it all revolves around the data and what people were trying to do with it and what people in the future are trying to do with it. So if you know the data, it's much easier to work with it than the lines of code.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that would be an interesting segment for people to learn something from.
Hopefully.
Show me the money. Show me the money. Jim is the show me the money man.
Thank you.